Shalom, friends. Why am I draped in silks? And what's all this behind me? Wow, okay. So we're in Parshat Bamidbar, and Bamidbar means in the desert, because finally, after a year of being encamped around Mount Sinai, we're finally going to those famous 40 years in the desert on our way to making it to the Holy Land, to Israel. To here, la la la. Okay, so but here's the thing, is that every year we miss one of the most incredible descriptions and imageries. I can't even believe it. So here's what it was. We know that there was approximately 3 million people traveling through the desert. But one thing that most of us miss is that we were encamped as tribes, and we had a very established encampment. Well, that represents it. I'll explain it in a second. But the craziest thing is that each of the single tribes had a flag. A massive silk flag. I think I asked about 25 rabbis and rebbitzins today, and I couldn't get the dimensions. But what my friend Reb Shammai Siskin said is they obviously had to be big enough, at least each individual flag had to be big enough for their individual tribe to see it. So what was the count of the tribes? Well, just check out the Parsha, but it was anywhere between 30,000 minimum to 60,000 per tribe, humans, and that's just the men. So we're talking anywhere between, let's say, probably fair estimate, like 60,000 to hundreds of thousands of people have to see this one flag. Now, the other amazing fact about this, and this is all sourced in the Midrash, is that these flags were made of silk. That's why I brought all these beautiful silks to show you, because silk in the desert? How did they make silk in the desert? Do you know what it takes to make silk? It takes silk worms and this crazy process. I looked it up online. Look it up yourself. This crazy process where you leave the worms and then you dry the worms and then you pull the worms. Maybe that's what they were doing the whole year, but they had these amazing silk cloths with these epic, incredible colors. And not only that, but the emblem of each tribe was sewed onto their flag. But okay, so this just blows my mind, because it wasn't just that they left with these flags, but they traveled with these flags all the way until they got to Israel. I really wonder where the flags are today. So not only did each tribe have its own flag with its own color and its own emblem, but also each of the 4 encampments on the 4 directions. By the way, hello, here's where Judaism meets the 4 directions for anyone that's into shamanistic or South American religions and knows about the 4 directions. Here's where Judaism meets it. To me, this is absolutely amazing. First of all, because the Midrash claims, I don't know if it's true or not, but that the Jews were the first people in the world to ever even invent the concept of a flag. But where'd they get this idea? Why did they want to travel through the desert with flags? Well, at Mount Sinai, that's Shavuot, yeah, when the Torah was revealed, there was thousands and thousands of chariots of angels that came down from heaven, swirling around them with these unbelievable celestial flags. And when the people saw the image of this waving fabric, I guess, or whatever the angels' ones were made of, they were so inspired that they said, we want flags too, and then they made their own. So let's just go through a little bit of a tour so that you can see. Now, not only that, but my friends, color is all about vibration. Every single color has a vibration, a healing property. There's literally entire schools of therapy based on color, vibration, healing. My friend Shandel, for example, works with color healing in her therapeutic practice. So it's really not to be taken for granted, the image, the visual, and the colors. So here we go. Okay, so in the center of the camp, that's why I put these little angels to represent the Kodesh Kedoshim, that the Aron was traveling through the desert. Around the center of the encampment, again, of these 3 million people, are Moses and his family and the Leviim, right? And the Leviim, they were encamped around it. Moses and the family was camped closer. The Leviim were actually farther away, but their flag was 3 colors. So it was represented by red, white, and black. Okay, so that you could imagine the center of the camp, red, white, and black. And that doesn't even cover the fact that the coverings of all the things of the Mishkan, the sanctuary, were also these elaborate fabrics and unicorn skins. Gemara Shabbat 28a, look it up. But fine, so that's the center of the encampment, was red, white, and black. Now, to the east, which was the front of the encampment, there was techelet. We don't really know what color techelet is. It could be sort of like the things you see on the tzitzit, or it could be sky blue or more of a turquoise. So there was techelet, black and white, representing Yehuda, Yisachar, and Zvulun. And their symbols were the lion, the sun and the moon, and a ship, okay? So that was the front of the camp of Israel. As Israel approached in the desert, when people saw us, they were greeted by tchelet, blue, black, and white. To the south of the camp, we have Gad, Shimon, and Reuven, yeah? So Reuven is represented by red, and it had flowers, Judaim. Shimon is represented by green, and it had the city of Shechem. And Gad was black and white. We're not sure if it was interwoven fabrics or if it was more of a gray, but here I had a black and white fabric, so I used it. And they had troops on it. So that, if you saw Israel from the southern camp, you saw these colors represented. In the west, we had Ephraim with black, Menashe, actually also with black, and Binyamin, who was multicolored. So Binyamin's had a wolf, Menashe's had an ox, and Ephraim's had a bull. But that's pretty cool, right? Black and multicolored, I love that one. I wonder what's your favorite color scheme so far. And to the north, we had a reddish purple representing Naphtali. We had a pearl color representing Asher, and a sapphire color representing Dan. Dan had a serpent on it, Asher had an olive tree on it, and Naphtali had wine. So just basically, we were surrounded by these celestial flying colors, humongous banners that millions of people had to see, made of silk for all 40 years we walked in the desert. And who ever learned this in school? No one? Not me. To me, it's absolutely and utterly and completely magical and beautiful imagery to ponder over the course of Shabbat. And there's so much more to the camps. Each of the different directions had an angel that represented them, just like in the bedtime song we sing, B'Sem B'Shem Hashem. Each of the tribes was arranged the way that Yaakov had arranged the tribes around his own deathbed to convey the blessings to them. Each of the tribes was positioned in the direction that they were positioned because different spiritual forces for good and bad come from the different four directions according to the Midrash, and the different powers and challenges of the tribes were placed there keneged in opposition to help with the spiritual forces that were either going to assist us or put us in the way of harm. And then mind you, around the whole thing are like the clouds of glory. I can only imagine the scene. I can't even imagine it, and that's actually why I'm making this video, because I love imagining this stuff, and I want to invite you into imagining what this unbelievable journey through the desert must have looked like. And also just to inspire questions in you, like the way that I've been asking rabbis and rebbitzins all day. How did they make the silk? When did they make the silk? What were the proportions of the flags? What must it have looked like? Why did they want it? What did it represent? What does it represent now that countries around the world have flags? Do you believe that it's because of the Jews? I don't know the answers, but I love the inspiration. I love the idea that we always traveled around holiness, and we always traveled around this center point, which was the idea of being in communication with our souls and with God. So Shabbat Shalom for Parshat Bamidbar. I hope that this was a new look at the Parsha for you, and I really hope that you spread these ideas and questions with the people that you're having Shabbat with. And what if this was like the Jewish rainbow? Like, what if these colors were like the way that God wanted us to represent the Jewish people? So, wow, food for thought. Shabbat Shalom. This is a behind the scenes of how to make a Parsha video when it's talking about fabrics and you just love fabrics.